So today on this video we're going to talk about digital transformation and strategy.
So welcome to ProfileTree TV, and today I'm very excited to talk about digital transformation. So Natalie, thank you very much for coming in.
You're welcome.
So tell us all about yourself and what brings you up here to talk to us about digital transformation.
Well, thanks very much for inviting me. So my name is Natalie Haccius, so they're not a typical name, but I was born with it, as they say. So my background is very much, I work as a digital consultant, so I contract in various different companies on a freelance basis. I got into this whole digital realm by accident. I used to work in the film business as a production coordinator working on Hollywood movies, so like Braveheart and In the Name of Love and all these films, working in Ardmore Studios, and greatly enjoyed it. It was high pressure, working in a multidisciplinary team. I say that for a reason, because it gave me a lot of discipline and able to think on my feet and look at crisis management very quickly. But there's a lot of downtime in Hollywood movies, and there's a lot of gaps in between working on a film. So sometimes you could have 2 or 3 or 4 months that you weren't available. You know, you're looking for work, but there's no movie coming in. So I started looking around to have a second string to my bow, and it was the time of web sites, and it was a long time ago, fido. And I got hooked, totally and utterly hooked in the digital field when I saw the autonomy that people could have, that suddenly they could self-publish, they could tell their own story, and they were in control of it, as opposed to offline media where you were literally handing over your product or yourself to an agency. Move on, and I decided that this was for me. I went in as a project manager into a multimedia agency and worked using all my skills from the film business, but in a multimedia capacity. So I used to manage event management and installations of interactive media, things like the Irish Music Hall of Fame. There was the AIDS exhibition and various corporate clients like the Welsh National Botanical Gardens. And it was always multivaried, multi-disciplined. There was text and there was video, there was interaction.
Amazing.
It was great fun, really good fun, yeah. And I learned a lot.
And I think if the video now, it's come full circle.
Full circle, exactly. It's incredible. So moving on from then, I actually brought a product to market. I decided that I was going to use my entrepreneurial skills and having learnt a lot, and I brought a digital DVD postcard to the Irish market. And in fact, we sold to the Irish diaspora as well. We even got into Dollywood. So wow. We even got into Dollywood in America, and on Aer Lingus planes, where we sold a postcard that had a DVD inside it. Now it's all pretty old school now, but it went very well, and we sold the company. Very much moved on from then, and I got more and more involved in the digital world, and because of my product I learned and wanted to know more about digital marketing. Learned about digital marketing and realized how little I knew. Because although digital marketing was fascinating and exciting, I believed, and I was correct, I think, in my assumption, that there's a lot more to marketing than digital marketing. So I learned and studied that, and then since then I've been working in digital agencies, and now I work as a contractor for multinationals, wow, more or less, and people looking to transform their products.
Amazing, excellent. Yeah. So what a journey.
Yeah, quite a journey.
So loads of experience, as you say, from movies, and incredible, and
yeah,
they will
and
be
all interrelated.
Yes, of course, and then project management as well.
Project management, which is what I adore. I love working on projects. I love helping a business to work out their strengths and where they need to focus on their weaknesses, and how to make that transformation into a digital economy. Because that's what it is.
Yes, I know, yeah. And exactly then the final step, I guess, as well, you've had your own business.
Yes.
It's very unusual.
It's very unusual, and I think very much helped me along to understand a business's perspective and their difficulties, yeah.
Of course, and that's, as I say, someone coming in to help a business, having your own business, you actually understand it.
Yeah.
project management and the media. Amazing.
Yeah,
What a skill set.
Yeah.
So how do you go in and help businesses? What do you do?
Well, what I normally do at the moment, just to give you an example, because I contract, which is something that I actually choose to do because it keeps me on my toes, so I don't get stale in any business or company, and it also gives me huge experience working in digital sectors. Different sectors, different companies. I understand different issues that they're having. Just to give you an example, I'm just back from Switzerland. I've been working in the IMD Business School for the last 5 months with their marketing department, and that's been a fascinating insight into having access to all of this great thought leadership. I mean, it was a great experience. Prior to that, a work I was working with a pharma company, a multinational, who were trying to transform their retail outlet and add a loyalty scheme. So I helped them with the scope of their project and their business requirements, and got it to hand it over to an internal team at that stage, and that was about a 6 or 7 month project, which was highly enjoyable because I was working with e-commerce as well.
Yes. Incredible. And so Switzerland as well. Wow.
Yes.
So the variety from pharmacy in Dublin to incredible.
Yeah.
And so you've been really in this space for 15 years?
At least 15 years, yes.
Okay.
Really exciting space to be in.
You've seen a lot of transformation then?
Huge amount of transformation. When you consider a long time ago, we were happy to have a website up, and it was a static website. Yeah. And very, very, it was just a brochure up on the web. I think, to be fair to us all, it's the tech has evolved to allow us to transform our offerings, and then what happened was that people wanted to interact with those websites. So that happened. If you look at banking, we were allowed to do online banking, and then we started developing into smartphones and having smartphones, and we wanted to be able to access those websites online. So hence mobile. We like shopping and we like to buy from our mobile phones, but this has only been a recent development in the last 7 years. So before then, how are we going to pay for these services when the development of PayPal originally, and now Stripe and all the other platforms, allows huge transformation in a business? And I think what's really exciting now is that we're getting an understanding that the customer is actually driving our businesses, and the businesses that are succeeding are the ones that are listening to their customers and stop trying to dupe their customers. I have this, it's quite interesting to watch when you look back on over the years, but the advice that was given about digital marketing. Originally, it was all about, how do you work with the algorithms? How do you dupe the algorithms? How do you get Facebook to put your page up on top by these tweaks, and Google with SEO and how many keywords to a page? And really now, because these giants have become so big, it doesn't work anymore. And what does work? What works is that you give your customer what they want in the right place, on the right channel, in the right time, and that they can order, and that you are listening. I really think that loyalty to a brand has gone, and people don't have any loyalty to your brand, but they want you to be loyal to them.
So in all these transformations, now we're seeing voice, and we've got AR coming, and who knows what else. As you say, it's incredible the journey that we're on.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you with the SEO. So we do offer SEO, but at the end of the day, it's quality content that ranks. It's not back to the old school ways.
That's right.
I don't understand why people still try and play the game, because how can you beat? I don't know how many PhDs Google have working. Who's going to beat? It's impossible to beat them. It's back to quality and providing what customers want.
Exactly, and I very much think that companies can sometimes get completely overwhelmed. Well, how are we going to compete with Amazon? How are we going to compete with the big giants? And the answer to that is you cannot. You cannot compete with these people, but you can look at some of their processes. You can look at some of their offerings and see and evaluate, how best could I do that? Or how can I aspire to try and do what Amazon are doing? And if you even take one or two of those nuggets and put them into your own business processes and offerings, you're already on to a winner. The other thing is, I find, is you cannot be all things to all men. And that comes from anyone working in the digital realm, but also from your business offering. And I think it's really, really important to be hugely critical of what you're offering and as a business, and to see, is there anything there that you can change? Is there anything there that's been driven by the board? Is there anything in your business or value proposition that you are driving and not your customer? Because really at the end of the day, your value as a business is how closely aligned is it to what the customer wants? Yeah. And if you can answer the question of why should I buy from you? And you can answer that to me and make me want to buy from you, and it's coming from the needs of the customer rather than the needs of the business, you're already on the right road.
Amazing, excellent. And I think we're on the same path here. We're really trying to focus on customer satisfaction. Even we have a job title of project manager, and we're trying to change that to customer satisfaction as opposed to get our mindset right. So it's not about shipping jobs or products. It's actually, is the customer happy?
That's
and
right.
If the customer's happy, then we're happy. And that's we've probably seen the biggest growth is when we've actually adopted that mindset. So It's amazing. So I totally agree.
Yes.
It's incredible, customer, and there's so much choice today for
there
people.
Is indeed.
Hit Google and you'll find anything you want.
Everyone is going to compete with you. So advocacy is the cheapest form of Google advertising as far as I'm concerned. If you can get reviews about your service and your offerings and people like that, people buy from people. They don't buy from businesses.
Amazing. And again, I'd see the internet as a great leveler. So I know we're talking about Amazon, you're right, we're all competing against Amazon and Google and the newspapers. But the internet's given so many small businesses, individuals, an opportunity to sell that we wouldn't necessarily have as well. So it is a great leveler for many businesses, and the opportunities are incredible. I think of all the small businesses that come in here, I see so many individuals, like solopreneurs.
Yes.
There'll never be 2 or 3 people working in the business, but they're on their own. They're very happy just working. Like even work has changed in the last couple of years.
Totally. Well, look at my.
Exactly.
I'm a hired gun. I come into companies and I help them to produce what they want to produce. I advise them.
So what challenges do businesses face then if they don't have a digital strategy?
I think what happens, the challenge they have if they don't have a clear plan, is that they assume they know what the customer wants. And I think, Google are rich and Facebook are rich for a reason, is that they have a lot of businesses playing a lot of money on their platforms. And it's not that they're not necessary, but I think you need to actually do a deep down dive as to why you and who are you targeting. Especially for a small business, there's a niche there, and that's where the value is to be got. If you're trying to compete with Amazon, you never will. But if you can get a niche market and know your customer and know what your business is, the only way of doing that is to have a strategy.
Yes, and I note again that we're only talking for a few minutes so far, but even when you're talking about digital strategy, you're talking about the customers first.
Absolutely.
Amazing,
the customers drive your business, and the customers will give you insights into your business. I think sometimes entrepreneurs have a big difficulty. I know I was challenged with that, was that because they're so deep into their business, they've had to require so much energy to actually lift your head up and to actually take a look and maybe be wrong about your customer. That takes a lot of honesty.
Yeah, wow.
Maybe to say, well, maybe I'm not right. And that's where having an external person coming into a business can be so good and refreshing, because they can see things that you can't. You're too busy trying to get your product out to market. They might turn around and say, hey, have you thought of this aspect? But I believe we're focusing very much at the moment on digital marketing, which, strategy is much more than just digital marketing. In fact, if you want to get me on my high horse, I would say there's no such thing as digital marketing anymore.
Excellent. So tell me about this now. High horses allowed. Brilliant.
I believe that marketing in a digital economy is marketing. That's my theory. There is no such thing. There is no barrier. The customer doesn't see a barrier. Mm-hmm. The customer doesn't see that they're buying your product on mobile. They don't see they're buying it online. They don't see they're buying offline. They just see your business. And the challenge is how ready are you to make that journey across channels as frictionless as possible?
Yeah. That is a big mindset change for a lot of people, actually, to even think of that.
Yes.
And do you think businesses generally know that or appreciate it?
I think the bigger businesses do. I think they have their own challenges in making that happen. I believe that we still have a mindset of trying to control the customer. And I think the businesses that appreciate that they cannot are the ones that are already ahead of the posse. That's my own thinking.
Yeah. But I guess I'm thinking again, even the clients we work with and the people we meet every day, maybe 90%, 85% don't realise that the marketing's like this.
Yeah, but the 10% do, and they're doing well.
Yeah. They're the ones that are killing it. Yeah.
There are some people that there's a terminology called digital Darwinism. Oh. And if you think about it, it's going to be the survival. The ones that do not change are not going to make it. And you cannot control your customer.
Amazing.
So the ones that survive are the ones that understand that their customer is king. Now, having said that, one can't cater to every customer. You have to actually, with your digital strategy, evaluate which customers are actually worth holding on to and which ones are worth losing. And if you sort of put that 80-20 rule, which ones are worth dropping. They might be high value, but they may require you as a business so much to actually fund and cater to that it's just not worth it.
Actually, we've all got some clients like that, so it's a 80-20 rule. Yeah,
it's very, very difficult, especially if you're an entrepreneur. And for enterprises, it's difficult for them as well because they have legacy hardware and tech. And for them to change, they're not nimble, they're not agile. And it requires a huge mind shift. And a lot of the time, the people who are on the board have been in that business for a long, long time and are not willing to actually let go of it, and they want to control their business. And I appreciate that, and those are the difficulties that are out there. But until you change your mindset and realise that you cannot know everything about digital, it is impossible for everyone to know everything about it. We all rely on each other. We all rely, even when I'm working on a job, something will come up that I won't know too much about, and I pick up the phone through my network and I say, can you give me a hand here? And it's vice versa. And, with an enterprise organisation, you're now looking at operations, you're looking at your supply chain, you're looking at your marketing. And so often the marketing person is not brought up to the board level, and the marketing person is the voice of the customer. And I find this is very, very overwhelming that the businesses, they haven't got their customer at the table. So the CTO sometimes will be driving the transformation, which is not really the right angle to go about it, purely because tech has given too much weight at the table. Yes, of course it's important, but tech should only be there to implement what the front end of the business is trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I see that all the time actually.
Yes.
I see, it's amazing actually, tech after finance, tech is probably next seat to the CEO and the board.
That's right, absolutely.
Where you're totally right actually, the marketing is just...
Well, marketing has never been given that prominence, but I think it's changing. Yeah, and I think the more forward-thinking companies have definitely got the CMO at the table.
And so again, I'm thinking that it's so obvious when you mention it, and thinking about it, it's so obvious, it's glaringly there, but I've never seen it before. So amazing. So you really, really, really are focused on the customer, no matter what happens in any strategy for a business. It has to
absolutely, as much as possible. As much as you're allowed. It can be quite a challenge sometimes to come in and say, well, the customer here is driving your business. That takes a lot to let go of. But the customer is always out there. In fact, I would nearly go as far to say that an established brand, if they don't change digitally, they are chipping away at the value of their brand.
Wow.
So, all the while there's disruptors coming up that are very quick, very agile, and will take that brand's value away very fast unless that brand changes. And that is the big challenge, with total understanding of why these things happen. Because they're big legacy systems in companies. The supply chain may be on one system, click and collect from an e-commerce perspective is quite challenging, especially in Ireland, to get it to market within 12 hours. This is what the customer's looking for. You do this as a well-known sports brand that can actually do that now. And you will be rewarded. The youngsters will go for it. Yeah. But it is a big challenge and it can cost a lot of money. even, EPOS systems, how they integrated back end with the front end, and loyalty, how are you going to burn points, collect points, all are linked into EPOS systems. These are all very, very expensive tech that the businesses have to change. And consequently, disruptors come up and they just take the pickings and they see where the market is going. And that is the challenge that these big companies have. I think the challenge that startups have is obviously cash to do this, and also they don't have an established following. They don't have established customers, so they have to go and mine for these customers straight out. And so equally, they're focused on a niche market, but how do you move to the next stage and without devaluing your original proposition? That's a challenge that a startup would have.
Do you find businesses are tempted to use digital transformation to reduce costs, or is that something that they should be doing anyway?
Well, obviously that's a spin-off of having a digital transformation, is to try and reduce costs, but it's the wrong approach to take. Too often I see businesses that try to bring in a process that reduces their bottom line and yet negates the customer experience. If you can improve your customer experience by giving them added value, by giving them extra services or helping them more, and you also get the benefit of reducing your cost.
It'll happen anyway.
It'll happen anyway, exactly. And the idea is not to reduce your bottom line by cutting a service to the customer, by making another barrier, another friction. For instance, you often see that call centres are being reduced by bringing in, artificial intelligence. That's not necessarily the way to go, because we often see how frustrating that can be when you don't get your question answered and you're getting a bot answering, the chat bot. So can you help your customer with a new process? Can you help them get their money back into their account quicker, for instance, with a way of insurance apps? Sometimes nowadays you're allowed to upload your doctor's receipt and you can get the money back into your account within days. That is helping the customer. And that is also reducing processes within the business.
And costs as well.
And
so
cost.
Actually, no, I totally understand. So basically, look after the customer.
Exactly.
Fix the problem or give them a new solution.
And you will be rewarded.
More sales, reduce costs, and
exactly.
it'll help. Incredible.
Thank you.
So obviously, we see change coming faster and faster, and I find that every day here, the challenges, like there's new things out. Like I'm reading about AR on YouTube now, and you can buy your makeup on YouTube. Voice, obviously, with Google and Siri and Amazon. We have video now with 5G. If you're not doing video, you're irrelevant once 5G comes out to all our devices next couple of months, stroke year. If you don't have a video strategy, you're going to be toast as well. So it's getting harder and more complicated.
Indeed.
And even I can actually see, and I never thought I'd see this, I can actually see it becoming more expensive per quarter online. It used to be per year.
Yes.
But now I feel it's even 6 weeks sometimes. And again, that's filtering through, which is probably a good thing to a certain point. Bad thing, of course, for us businesses trying to live, but it's definitely changing and getting more.
Oh, without
faster.
a doubt, it's getting more and more competitive out there. And I think one of the biggest fallacies that businesses were given originally years ago was that digital marketing was a cheap replacement to marketing. Mm-hmm. And instead of adding a line in one's budget, they thought they could replace it. And now they're learning, and we are all learning, that it's not. It's an actual added cost. Mm-hmm. I think the challenge is how to overcome the challenges about all these different channels and all these different ways of telling the world about your product is that you really need to have a very, very focused strategy and to be really, really careful about where you're putting those precious resources. Because if you don't understand your customer and you're led more by the tools, which are, and let's face it, these are all tools, you're going to spend a lot of money and it's going to be like broadcasting out to the world. Whereas if you are razor sharp as to why you're doing something and what your objectives are and trying to achieve that, you will get a much bigger ROI.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. People just start, even the talk at a low level, just doing ads on Facebook without even considering or thinking what they have to do or who they're targeting.
Exactly.
And you're just spending money and wasting it.
Well, you're making the multinationals more and more powerful, let's put it that way.
Incredible, yeah, this is true. So you see a big difference then between the big corporates and startups then?
Startups have the ability and the advantage of being agile, but then they're low in resources. So that brings its own challenges, and also the likes of doing paid advertising, the likes of doing all this content marketing, and the likes of it's very expensive, and sometimes they don't have the resources or the know-how to implement all these changes, and that's why bringing in an external sometimes for a short length of time and then using that and getting them to do a plan is an excellent strategy. I've seen it used a lot.
No, and incredible you mentioned the banks. So
yes.
I have seen so many startups, technically
yes.
startups coming into the banking sector, and on your phone app,
that's right.
they don't have the banking or the branches.
Oh,
so they've got
yes.
they're saving that. Even the same's happened in retail. When I think of it, all the retail shops traditionally would have had all the sites and they're paying their stamp duty and the rates and everything else, whereas online has a fraction of those costs.
That's true, but there's an interesting change happening there. There's that you've got digital businesses that are now actually taking on bricks and mortar stores just to improve their brand, which I find fascinating.
I would never, if you'd asked me, I'd
never would have seen that. No,
never.
See, so things are always changing and always evolving, and
I'd have lost
exciting times.
I would have lost my house on that one. I would have said never would have happened, never. But it's amazing. You're right. It goes full circle.
It's beginning to go full circle, but of course it's never going to take over the high street. And in fact, the high street, it's quite interesting. What's happening to the high street now is that the high street has the potential, and hopefully will happen, to become more community hubs, where they'll be providing services and not shopping. Mm-hmm. So you'll still have your little corner stores, but there'll be more of a community, and hopefully the community will come back to the high street. Mm-hmm. And that could be a positive thing.
Yeah, it'd be great to see, because the high streets have went through a tough time, and
exactly.
for sure the first thing that's pointed at is internet for that downfall.
But one can always remember in the early days when the spreadsheet came out, Excel, I'm not sure if you can remember that. And I was reading an interesting article that 400,000 accountancy technicians were made unemployed when Excel first came out. Wow. Because in the old days it was all paper and pencil. But the converse side to that is that look how many more jobs were made because of Excel. So one doesn't always have to look at it in a negative sense.
Totally, and it seems happening now with driverless cars.
That's right.
And people, I know, taxis and Ubers, employ so many people, but actually, it'll just make, I guess, hopefully less accidents.
Hopefully,
the environment will be better, but there'll be more jobs in other sectors. So it's like another revolution.
Yes,
evolution for ourselves is incredible.
Yes.
But a really exciting time. I can't wait for the driverless cars.
I don't know. I think I can wait for a bit.
Oh no, I'd be there working away, but I don't know what to do. So a business that's thinking of creating a digital strategy, what advice would you give them to start with?
I would advise them to use a framework, to get a consultant in to help them identify, because sometimes you're so deep down in the grass that you cannot see the sky, and having an external can sometimes challenge you and ask you those questions as to why your customer should buy off you. And there's a great hint that sometimes I use, as you ask the question why 5 times. So why does your customer buy from you? And then you answer that question with a little why, and you keep going and keep going and keep going. And after 5 questions, you'll probably come down to the real value of what your business is.
Amazing, excellent, and that is not easy to do.
Very difficult, and requires brutal honesty. It requires brutal honesty from the board's perspective, and sometimes reevaluating what your actual customer proposition is. It may not be what you think it is,
and that's why you bring in someone external.
Exactly. Yes.
Ask the awkward questions.
Yes. To ask the awkward questions to help you formulate your strategy. Mm-hmm. I think it's important. If you don't have the skills with in-house, you can always rent them in. Yeah. Or else you can hire them in, and look at those skills. Mm-hmm. And I would suggest to stop focusing on titles in a company and start looking more on skills of your staff. Yeah. Because nowadays we we have a bit of everything, and we can help each other across different platforms. For instance, myself, I do strategy, but I also understand digital marketing. You see, and I've been in situations where people didn't even realise that I understood about video. So, we've all got hidden skills to offer and bring to the table from our past experience.
Very true, and actually it's the merging of all these skills together that gives you something that's really unique and special to a project.
Exactly, and I think also to bring an atmosphere of encouragement rather than of, to allow people to offer an insight as opposed to feel that they will be laughed at. Digital is such a huge beast. There is nobody has the answer to everything.
It is, and changes
changes all the time.
It's probably changed already since we sat down.
Yes,
well, for sure
absolutely.
it has. Many times over. That's the challenge. That's the exciting thing as well.
Yes.
You mentioned framework. So why is it frameworks?
A framework keeps you focused. I find there are frameworks out there. I came across a framework by P.R. Smith. It's his own. He has it trademarked. So it's called SOSTAC. And I came across this, and I just think it is extremely simple, but it's not to say that it's easy. So it just keeps you focused. You can use it for anything. It's highly adaptable, depending on it. It could be for digital transformation. It could be for digital marketing. You can just use it, and it just, it keeps you focused. And depending on how big the business is or how small it is, it can be adapted up and down.
Tell us a little bit more about this framework.
Okay, so it has 6 sections to it, and the first one is S for SOSTAC, so that would be the situation analysis, and this is the larger part of your actual strategy. So you're deep diving into everything about your business. You're looking at your customer, you're looking at why they buy off you, how they buy off you, and how they would like to buy off you. You're looking at the marketplace. Are there any trends coming out there? You're looking at your competitors. What are they offering? Is there anything that you could do better? You're looking at your inbuilt legacy. What are the resources that you have within your existing business? This can take quite a long time to go into a deep dive, and actually forms about 50% of the plan, because it's the backstory. And it's also what's happening out there in the marketplace. And you have to, again, be brutally honest, because you might find things that you don't really want to find. You might find that your competitors are actually moving into a space that you had intended to go. And how are you going to deal with that? So from that situation analysis, then we move into the objectives. What are you actually trying to do as a business? Where are you trying to go? How are you going to serve the customer? What are the wow factors you're going to offer them? It's like the sizzle, the customer, the situation. How are you going to get your customers to actually advocate for you? Why should they advocate for you? So these are the key objectives to your plan. It could be also, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to offer click and collect from an e-commerce point of view? How long do you want that to be? There are big issues there. Is it going to be a 24-hour or a 48-hour? Is 48-hour now valid? These are big questions that need to be asked. And are you going the right way if you're saying, we'll do it in 48 hours because that's all that our value chain and our chain management can do? So this is what you're actually trying to achieve with your plan. And that's the objectives. And then we move into the strategy, which is actually how do we get there? So this is pure marketing. So you're doing into your segmentation, your targeting, your value, your positioning of your product. And you have a great deep dive as to actually who you're going for. And then we move into tactics, T for tactics. And tactics are where you actually start only then to start looking at the tools that you're going to use to actually bring these objectives to light, to bring them to the market. It's only then that you start looking at, are you going to go, what kind of content marketing, what kind of paid marketing, if any, you're going to do, what are the tactics that you're going to actually implement and the tools to make these objectives happen.
Yes.
The next stage is action, and action is the people, the systems that you need in order to make this happen. Are you going to go out to vendors for some part of your plan? Who is going to make this happen and how are you going to make this happen? But you're right down to actually actionable items. It's the deep down plan. And then we have C, which is control. So this is the measurement aspect of actually your efforts, and you're going to monitor how are the objectives doing, and this is where the data and the use of data and data crunching comes in. And then it goes back again, back into the situational analysis. It's a constant cycle.
Yes.
All the time of the insights that you get. And I find this is a really, really good framework. I highly recommend it. P.R. Smith, SOSTAC.
Amazing. I've been blown away by some of those questions getting me.
Yes,
it's like, oh my word. So,
but it keeps you on focus.
Wow.
And it keeps you. And the beauty of it is it means that most businesses without a plan would go straight into the tactics.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah.
But now you know why, with this framework, you know why you're trying to do what you're doing.
Yeah, start at the beginning and actually figure out, because the why dictates the tactics as opposed
to the tactics dictating why you're doing it.
And the problem is with going straight into the doing, you're probably doing stuff that you like to do.
Exactly.
Or comfortable
or
doing.
You feel that the customer would like, but that may not be the truth. You may need to go and spend more time on your UX or your UI rather than your Google AdWords.
Amazing.
Or your SEO.
Amazing. And so the implementation of this plan, and so you work out the framework in this iteration goes through.
And that's where I've often been asked to actually implement, which is what I do. Sometimes I come into companies, they already have a plan, they have an idea of where they want to go, and I will implement that as a project manager. Otherwise I work as a strategist, and sometimes I get to do both, which is wonderful.
Amazing. Incredible. And what advice then would you give if there's anyone watching this today, they're thinking, okay, I need to consider my digital strategy? What advice would you give them, or where should they start?
I would suggest focus on your customer. I think I've been talking the voice of customer. Look at your website. Make sure that it's streamlined. Make sure that you're focusing your website on exactly what your customer is trying to do, and you're keeping that as simple and easy for them to do as possible. That you're removing all barriers, all friction. Invest in people. Invest in their skills. Allow this community within your organisation that people can input, that there are no kings within the board that are dictating from the top down. Everybody has a voice and everybody has a skill set to bring to the table. So obviously somebody has to make the final decision and somebody has to be accountable, but at least everybody has had an input and nobody is driving it from what they think should be done. They're basing it on exactly what the business is trying to achieve. And the research from there.
Incredible sage advice, I have to say. So we've a wee bit to do. I thought we had a really good plan until I've sat with you today. Now I'm realising there's a lot we can do to improve, but incredible. So
and don't be afraid to ask questions. I think the beauty of the digital community is that there's always somebody out there who will be happy to come in and assist you for a short time. I also would suggest is to be always, don't go to the nearest bright new shiny thing. Stick to the core, keep focused on what you're trying to achieve, keep focused on your customer, the customer that you want to attain and retain. That's the most important.
So, and that just the surmise, I guess, it was meet so many people who have tried to do something.
Yes.
And jumped into the tactics, tried to do something
That's
for
right.
a couple of months, didn't work.
Yes.
Gave up.
Yes.
And then try something else.
That's right.
Didn't work. Gave up.
That's
and
right.
just are lost in space. Never found a return from their digital marketing.
No.
Think the internet, the web doesn't work, and don't know where to go. But it's very clear. You go back to framework and start.
Framework. And I also think that there is no choice anymore. If you're not on the digital marketplace, you're not there. Your customer is there. You have to be there. So these, I do understand, having done this journey before myself as an entrepreneur, I do understand the cost of this. But I think if you become razor sharp about what you're trying to achieve and stick to those one or two goals as a startup, you will get there, but you have to be patient.
Amazing. Excellent. Thank you very much for your time today, Natalie.
You're very welcome.
So if anyone watching this wants to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Natalie Haccius, and there's only one of me.
Brilliant. Which is a really good advantage in today's world.
Indeed.
So it's brilliant.
Yes.
And what we'll do is underneath this video we'll have a link to your
super.
LinkedIn profile, so anyone can click through and see there. So thank you again for coming in and scaring the life out of me in digital transformation.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. video or chat and you learnt a lot like I have today as ever, make sure you click on the link below and connect with Natalie on LinkedIn, and for sure if you have questions, reach out and say hello. She's a lovely person to chat to and get some advice, and we'll hopefully see you in tomorrow's video. So thank you again. Talk soon. That's Kieran from ProfileTree. Bye now.